Welcome friends to the Business of Personal Brand Photography. My name is Paula Brennan. I am your host here, and I'm really excited for those of you who are fresh newbies to this podcast. So if you haven't listened to an episode of this podcast before, this is a really great one for you to get started, because I'm going to roll it right back to the basics here today. Okay. I'm going to go back to ground zero. Now, if you've been listening for a while, then this is going to be a great little one for you to listen to, just maybe to kind of like reassure you, to get you back into the kind of the zone that you need to be. And also to what I want to try and do is try and alleviate any pressure that you might be feeling around what you should be doing for your clients, and rather just look at what you can be doing. Okay. What is our role as personal brand photographers? Essentially, that's what I want to look at, because I'm going to be really straight with you. In the early days of me doing personal branding, I used to try and wear so many different hats. I literally helped people with their logos, with their brand colors. I've helped people with styling. I've kind of helped people to build sets. I've helped people to build websites, to do their social media, to write scripts. I've done it all, literally. And I think that this kind of, maybe, me having worn all of those hats, I can come back round the loop and kind of, let you know with just true authority, because I've been there, done that, worn the t-shirt, around what I actually think you can be doing for your clients and what's expected. Because I think that these sorts of things, especially like marketing, I know a lot of the photographers that I teach and that come to me and talk to me, they go, oh, I don't know anything about personal branding. I don't know, not really strong on marketing, or I'm not really, I don't have my own personal brand. And just because you don't have a huge awareness around that doesn't mean that you're not fully equipped to do the role as a personal brand photographer. Yes, obviously having skills in marketing and understanding how to build a website and what's required, and knowing, how to send out email newsletters, all of that stuff is great. And it's definitely a great layers for you to add into your arsenal, and makes you kind of, a really good candidate to be a better personal brand photographer, to understand what the final end use is for the images. It doesn't necessarily need to be a factor, though, for you to step into this space. Okay. So what I wanted to do today was really just unpack what is personal branding and where does our role as photographers fit within that space. Okay. So let's get started. So right now we are literally in the age of the personal brand. If you hadn't noticed, okay, with the age of with the advent of social media rising, of course, in the last sort of decade or so, nearly 2 decades now, social media has really changed the trajectory of the way modern marketing works. It used to be once upon a time that we would be connecting with big brands, think big Coca-Cola, your big food chains, your sporting brands and all of that kind of thing. And it relied heavily on the marketing, on those big billboards and things like that. But even back in those days, you think about the sporting stars and the celebrities and the musicians that would endorse a product. But these days, the individual, the small little guy sitting in his lounge room, or the person out there filming content on their phone, or the small business owner in your local area, they've all got the power to now curate their own personal brand as well. Right. And so this is where I think it's really important for us to sort of twig in and just be cognizant that right now this is a really crazy time in the sector, because people are taking control of their own brands and their own marketers. Think about your influencers, your TV personalities. I already mentioned celebrities, but they're just anybody making food in their lounge room these days can, get a massive following. And when you've got a really strong personal brand, the payday can be massive, right? It can be huge. So when I'm talking about a personal brand, what am I really talking about? Okay. What I really think about a personality, like a personal brand, it really is the culmination of somebody's experiences. It's a culmination of their own skills, and it's also wrapped up with their values. I really think that that's intrinsically what makes up a person's personal brand. When it comes to personal branding as the actual verb of doing personal branding, it is, for me, I find it's the process of defining and then also promoting what it is that you stand for as an individual. So what then culminates from the effort of personal branding is really that you have a personal brand at the end, right? And what is your personal brand? Effectively, I think that's just what people are saying about you when you're not in the room. Yeah. So it's that feeling that people get after they've interacted with you. It's the way you make them feel. It's the way you inspire them. It's the way that you make them feel energized. It's the lasting effect. It's the thing that people are saying about you. It's the thing that everybody feels about you after you've left the room. Okay. So it's that lasting effect. Okay. So what is our role as photographers then to help individuals to build their own personal brand? Well, in my mind, we are simply the visual storyteller. Okay. I don't think as photographers that we need to be responsible for defining the brand. And I think that this is something that I see a lot of photographers get stuck in the mud of, is that they feel like they need to unpack all of that for their clients. No, I don't really think that you do. I just think you need to have an understanding of who the person is. And let's go back to that, an understanding of the experiences, an understanding of their skills, and an understanding of their values, so that you can help to visually bring that to life. Okay. So this for me means that you just need to be able to unpack how your client wants to be perceived. You need to be able to ask them the right questions to figure out the stories, the right stories that they need to and that they want to be telling throughout their social media, throughout their website, throughout their marketing, throughout their writing, throughout their speaking. And then you need to be able to help them to create images that they can attach to it. You need to understand how your client works. You need to understand how they need to be seen in terms of like their ideal audience. And then you need to be able to help them to connect with their audience by creating images that are attractive to that audience, right? So that they feel, I don't always like to say this word, but they do feel authentic to the client and they are feeling resonant to their audience. Yeah. So it's kind of like that connection point. I really think that that's where we sit. Okay. So the images that you create, obviously, they need to be suitable for websites. They need to be suitable for social media. And in a lot of cases, they will need to be suitable for print marketing as well. Basically, what you need to be able to create for them is workable marketing content. And what does that look like? When you go onto social media, you can see so many varieties of examples of this. Anything goes, really. And stylistically, I would love you to see you stay in your lane and create in a way that you want to. But you can definitely, obviously, take in, inspiration from other people. But I think that you've got to always make sure that the images that you're creating obviously are going to be ultimately attractive for your clients, not just for the clients, but they've got to work for the clients as well. So what does this mean then when you're photographing, like if we move this into like small businesses, which is kind of like the area that I tend to specialize with, whilst I do work with some influencers, it doesn't tend to be the mainstay of my business. If I'm going to be really honest with you, I find a lot of influencers don't generally have to pay a lot for photography content. So, they might have somebody like an assistant or a marketing assistant that works with them. I know a lot of influencers rely heavily on their partners to do a lot of the content creation with them, or they're just doing DIY as well. So they're kind of not used to and sometimes don't really need to have the kind of professional photo shoot the day, like this sort of the ones that I would do generally with my clients. But from a business client, so I'm talking small business clients here, when you're talking to them, what's your job? What's your job and how do you what do you need to make sure that you're ticking the box of? Because we've talked about, what you need to understand and what you need to be creating, but ultimately, what do you need to do? So let's dive into that just a little touch because I'm really, really super passionate about this, as I think you can hear. Now, a lot of business clients have very, very specific requirements, okay? Some don't know necessarily what they need, but they just know that they want it. And so what you've got to do is you've got to make sure that you skirt that line, okay? So you can go off in a creative brief and have lots of fun with it, but you also do just need to make sure that you are creating for what the final end purpose is, okay? So some people will come to you and they'll be telling you, I need exactly this image and it needs to look like this. And then the other ones, you might need to fill in the gaps a little bit, but you definitely need to understand the right questions to be able to ask them, of course, to figure out what they need. I do really think, and this is a big, strong belief of mine, that in this day and age, you really need to be able to create a lot of variety, and you also need to have attention to detail when you're creating these sorts of images. So it's about sort of understanding what's on the screen, what's in the background, where can they use this image and what would make it dynamic enough for the clients and for the, the viewers to actually want to click on the image and maybe get taken to somewhere else. So I'm going to say this as a caveat in this is just be mindful of always capturing with the final purpose in mind. Yeah. Just always think, why am I taking this? Yes, sometimes you are just taking it because the client looks hot and it's a pretty picture. But I also would sort of make you kind of like just challenge you to think a little bit when you're sort of like setting up something. Am I setting this up because I need the person to just look great? And am I sort of like defaulting back to sort of portraits? Or am I kind of extending myself and looking at ways that I can make this interesting from a marketing perspective? So I do believe that you do need to have structure in place on your photo shoots. I think, always having something like a handy shot list there that you can default back to, because let's face it, we're all human and sometimes you can forget. So I do think that when you're, working with these sorts of clients, I don't think that you can kind of work on a whim. I always think that it's important to do that consultation process or even just ask a few questions and have an understanding of where the images are going to be going on. So like for me, I think having those kind of guidelines, like a shot list and a process for working with clients, working through, maybe it's a consultation process that you've got, perhaps it's a specific set of questions that you get them to answer in a questionnaire, whatever it is. I think it's just important to have those kind of processes in place to be able to kind of guide you and steer you so that you can professionally get the most that you need from your clients. I also think that it's really important as the photographer that you are really careful about selecting the right locations. And even more so than this, I think it's really important that you are realistic and guiding your clients about timing, because these are busy clients who are, time poor often. And if you keep them even for an extra half an hour or an hour on a photo shoot, that can really impinge on their experience of working with you. I also do think it's really important to be mindful of the times of day that you're shooting. A lot of the time, business clients will want to dictate what time things happen, but it's up to you as a professional to guide them in the right direction to make sure that they are, they're giving you the optimal chance to create at that right time for the lighting, whether it be indoors or outdoors, to be honest with you. I also think that you as the photographer need to have some sort of responsibility for educating your clients around props, around styling and around activities in order to capture, to create the right kind of vibe and to capture obviously what they need. Based on the discussions that you've had and based on the needs that they've told you, you are going to need to guide them in that department. Okay, so that's a responsibility that's back on you. And I really do think then once you put all of these processes in place, I think it's really important that you as the photographer do whatever you need to do to stay creatively inspired. And I think that this is something that wanes from time to time depending on what's going on in your life. But I do think that as a photographer, you do need to be drawing inspiration, whether you're looking through social media to find new ideas of what's working, whether you're doing creative shoots in order to keep your mind free, whether you're making sure that you're just taking enough time out for you and your business so that when you're turning up to shoots with your clients, that you're actually like the most happiest version of yourself. And you're right in the moment and you're right there with them. And I think that these are all the things that I think we are responsible for when it comes to personal brand photo shoots. Now, I haven't talked about logos. I haven't talked about colors. I haven't talked about design. I haven't talked about any of these aspects. And I think right now, if you are feeling like you're feeling overwhelmed with what you're doing with your clients, maybe take a little step back and just have a look at all of the things that you are trying to do. Because as I said, you're just there as the visual storyteller. So you just need to translate your client's personal brand into a visual way of representing it. You're not responsible for deciding the direction of the personal brand. The person's bringing that to you. So it's just up to you to translate that. And the way that you do is by all of the things that I've just talked about through this episode. So hopefully that this episode has, inspired you to think a little bit differently maybe than what you are now. And maybe I've given you the opportunity to simplify some of the things that you're doing. Or maybe you've been inspired to look in some other directions and go, oh, I might need to work on that area of my business. And if you do feel like you need some help in kind of like tweaking your systems and your processes to do with personal branding, can I suggest that maybe you might have a little bit of a look at Behind the Business, because this is my signature, my foundational course to really help you to get all of these ground rules in place to get all of the processes that you need done in order for you to be able to serve your clients better. So we're talking about all of the email templates. We're talking about shot lists. We're talking about lighting and posing at different locations. We're talking about how to run your clients through automated systems. All of these things that ultimately will help you to free up your own creativity, because you know that the business end of your shoots and the business end is all taken care of. So my friend, if you are wanting to have a look at that, I'm going to pop a link into the show notes for that particular program. But other than that, I hope that today has really helped you, as I said, to just give you a little bit of a tip in the right direction in order to be looking at what your role can be as a personal brand photographer, instead of trying to take on all the aspects that are other people's roles. Leave social media management and videography, and leave design, and leave dressing, and leave makeup artists, and leave all of that stuff to the professionals that's their lane. Okay. I'm giving you permission here now to put on those Clydesdales whatever they're called, the blinders, so that you're just focusing in on your own particular role. All right, my friend, take care. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I look forward to capturing you in the next episode. Bye for now.
You can take my Lambo. I'll put on a tight show.